Cliff Richard's journey to fame began in a faraway place that most people didn't expect. Born Harry Roger Webb in Lucknow during the final years of British India, his earliest memories were filled with warmth and a vibrant, sunny atmosphere. But as the winds of history shifted, his world was turned upside down. As unrest spread across the region and the push for Indian independence grew louder, his family decided to leave. The Webbs boarded a crowded ship back to England, landing in a post-war country still grappling with scarcity and rationing. The contrast between his early childhood and life in post-war Britain was stark. In this environment, music became his escape, a way to assert his identity and prove that he could rise above the challenges. A star is born. By the time Harry Webb reached his late teens, he had already reinvented himself as Cliff Richard, a name that symbolized strength and stability, inspired by his musical idols like Elvis Presley and Little Richard. Music became not just his escape, but his mission. Cliff, along with his backing group, initially called The Drifters and later The Shadows, recorded a debut single that was groundbreaking. It wasn't the soft, polished pop music of the time. It was raw and rebellious, a sharp contrast to the norm. When his single hit the airwaves, it ignited a cultural revolution. Fans went wild, fainting at his concerts while radio stations played his music on constant repeat. Cliff Richard had quickly become Britain's answer to Elvis, a rock idol who would come to define the nation's rock and roll era. Faith over fame, a bold decision. The 1960s were an era of rebellion where pop stars were expected to live on the edge. But Cliff Richard surprised everyone when, at the height of his fame, he publicly declared his Christian faith. Standing before a massive crowd at an event led by American evangelist Billy Graham, he announced his commitment to Christianity in a bold move that stunned his fans and the media alike. Many believed his career was doomed. They feared that this public expression of faith would alienate his fan base and damage his image as a rebellious rock star. Yet Cliff chose to stay true to both his faith and his music. Rather than abandon one for the other, he seamlessly merged both aspects of his life, becoming the first major British pop star to openly live by his Christian beliefs while still topping the charts. The cost of fame, personal sacrifices. Cliff's decision to merge faith and fame was not without its costs. At just 21, he was dealt a devastating blow when his father passed away unexpectedly, leaving him to care for his mother and sisters. His mother later battled Alzheimer's, and Cliff spent years as her primary caregiver. These personal tragedies weighed heavily on him, deepening his sense of responsibility but also taking a toll on his personal life. Relationships became increasingly difficult and several romantic connections fell apart. A significant relationship with a dancer ended in heartache as he chose to prioritize his family and career over marriage. Despite these sacrifices, Cliff remained resolute. While other pop stars faded, he stayed true to himself, holding on to his values even as the music industry shifted around him. A love unspoken. The Olivia Newton-John story. Among all the romantic stories in Cliff Richard's life, none stands out more poignantly than his unspoken love for Olivia Newton-John. The two first met in the early 1970s, and their chemistry was undeniable. Their voices harmonized beautifully during performances, and their friendship quickly grew deeper. But Olivia was already in a relationship with Cliff's bandmate, Bruce Welch. Their complicated affair caused much tension, and despite Olivia's eventual departure from Bruce, the emotional scars lingered. Cliff, torn between his loyalty to Bruce and his feelings for Olivia, chose to remain silent, unwilling to interfere with their relationship. Years later, in his autobiography, Cliff admitted he had been in love with Olivia, but never acted on it, choosing instead to preserve the friendship. This unrequited love remained a quiet, bittersweet chapter in his life. Reinvention and a triumphant return. By the mid-1970s, many believed Cliff Richard's career had come to an end. For the first time since his debut, he went a full year without charting a single hit. The music landscape had changed, and younger stars like David Bowie and T-Rex were taking the spotlight. But just when it seemed like his career was over, Cliff reinvented himself. In 1976, he released Devil Woman, a dark, edgy track that marked a departure from his wholesome image. The song became a massive hit, climbing into the top 10 in both the UK and the US. Cliff was no longer seen as just a teen idol. He had re-established himself as a serious artist with a broader appeal. This comeback cemented his place in music history and proved that he could still thrive in an industry dominated by younger stars. A Christmas Miracle, Mistletoe and Winecliff, Richard's resilience continued to shine through in the 1980s. One of his most iconic achievements came in 1988 with the release of Mistletoe and Wine, a simple holiday song that would go on to become a phenomenon. The song topped the charts during Christmas, becoming the year's best-selling single and earning platinum status. The success of Mistletoe and Wine proved that Cliff still had the power to dominate the charts, even in a rapidly changing music landscape. His connection with his audience remained as strong as ever, and by the late 1980s he had achieved what no other British artist had managed: #1 singles across 5 consecutive decades. This remarkable achievement solidified his place in music history and showed that his appeal was timeless. The industry rejection. The Millennium Prayer. By the late 1990s, Cliff Richard had already proven himself as a music legend, but the industry seemed to turn against him. When he released The Millennium Prayer, a simple yet powerful song setting the Lord's Prayer to the tune of Auld Lang Syne, radio stations rejected it. Critics labelled it irrelevant, and some even mocked it, claiming it was too old-fashioned. Despite this, Cliff's loyal fans rallied behind him, helping the song climb to #1 in the UK and remain there for 3 weeks. The Millennium Prayer became a statement, an assertion that Cliff Richard's legacy was not for the music industry to decide, but for the public to embrace. The song's success showed that even without industry support, Cliff was still beloved by his fans, who proved that love could still triumph over industry bias. The Raid, a devastating ordeal. In 2014, Cliff Richard's life took an unexpected and traumatic turn. While he was living in Portugal, the BBC broadcast live footage of a police raid at his home in Berkshire. The raid had been organised by South Yorkshire Police in response to an accusation that Cliff had assaulted a man during a Billy Graham rally in the 1980s. The allegations turned out to be baseless, but the damage to Cliff's reputation was already done. The media circus surrounding the raid caused immense personal suffering. Cliff became reclusive, struggling with his health and mental well-being. For nearly 2 years, the investigation dragged on, with no charges brought against him. The media coverage, including the BBC's handling of the situation, further fueled the public's doubts. In 2018, the High Court ruled in Cliff's favour, acknowledging that his privacy had been violated, but the scars from this chapter remained, a story of resilience. Cliff Richard's life has been a roller coaster of triumphs and heartaches. Despite personal losses, career struggles, and public betrayals, he has remained resilient. His career has spanned over 6 decades, and his ability to adapt and reinvent himself time and time again has ensured his place in music history. From his rise as Britain's first rock and roll star to his faith-driven commitment to music, Cliff has endured and thrived. His story is not just about his music, but about his strength in the face of adversity. through it all he has remained true to himself, refusing to let the media, critics, or personal hardships define him. Cliff Richard's legacy is one of perseverance, faith, and unwavering love for his fans.